Welcome to the Married People Podcast, where we help you make marriage real, fun, and simple. Each week, we have honest conversations about one simple thing that can make your marriage better. Because when your marriage is better, everything's better. My name is Ted Lowe, one of the hosts of the Married People Podcast. I've been working with married couples since 2001, and I've been married since 1995. And I believe having a great marriage may be a lot easier than we have been led to believe. And we're doing things a little bit differently for this episode. I'm sad to say that my co-hosts, CJ and Afton, aren't here today because they're off on assignment, but they will be back really soon. Hey, today on the Married People Podcast, we're going to take a look at the question, how do I have a great marriage when my parents didn't? Now, this is true for a lot of us, but it's a great question for all of us. And to help us wrestle with this question, I interviewed my good friends and founders of Marriage 365, Meygan and Casey Caston. You know, the thing I love the most about Meygan and Casey is that from almost the moment they started getting hope in their marriage, they wanted to share that hope with other couples. And that's the heart behind what they do at Marriage 365. I think it's why they're so transparent and hopeful and really, really practical. Right now, here's my interview with Meygan and Casey Caston. Hey, you guys, I am so excited today to be with Meygan and Casey Caston, and they are the founders and CEOs, is that what we call you guys, of Marriage 365?
Sure.
Yeah.
Does that sound good, CEOs? It feels good to be a CEO, right?
King and queen.
King and queen.
Yeah.
I love this. Well, Casey, you and I met, what, five or 6 years ago?
At least.
Yeah, and so...
Yep. Chicken and waffles.
In Atlanta, that was good chicken and waffles,
was.
Right? Meygan was home taking care of children while we were eating
Gladys
downtown
Knight.
Atlanta.
We were hoping Gladys
Exactly.
Knight was going to make an appearance.
Oh, well, and it didn't happen for us, did it?
No,
But it was a good time. And I think realized really early on, like, this is a kindred spirit of how we want to do this and how we want to leverage marriage, not just for Christians, but to also leverage marriage to draw people to the church, because Christian marriages should look better than any marriages on the planet, right? It's supposed to represent Christ in the church. And so I know we had similar hearts there, and it's been so fun to watch you guys start Marriage 365 and then go full time and just watching it explode. You were on Extra. That was
Extra.
That was impressive to me. I was like, yes.
Let me tell you, it is so nerve-wracking to be in Hollywood, because what you can't see on screen is about 60 people, staffers, teleprompters, lighting. Yeah, we were not just we didn't look nervous, but we were shaking in our boots.
Were you really?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Because I just thought, oh, they're in their zone right now. They're with their people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure, and you have a very limited time. It's not like you can sit all day and take retakes and things. I mean, it's just time is money there, and it's Hollywood. So it's just one story after another. And so we had about 20 minutes, and they just went through about 40 questions with us. And you just have to answer on the spot. Boom, right there.
Boom, go,
Yep.
go. So tell us a little bit before we dive in, because we're going to get to hear your story, which I'm so excited that our listeners get to hear that. Tell us a little bit about Marriage 365. What are you guys finding out? What do you love? What are you doing?
Yeah. So it's more of a story. It's a story where, Meygan and I, when we first met, dating was so easy. And we said, let's do this forever. And so we planned our dream wedding. And on our wedding night, everything came crashing in on us. And it was really all of the past baggage that we brought into the relationship. And now, as I look 14 years into marriage, really every single obstacle in achieving some sort of happily ever after, we've had to face head on. And it starts with, basically between Meygan and I, there are 12 marriages between both sets of our parents.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
12 marriages.
Yeah. So, I grew up in complete disconnection. Anytime, I saw my mom fight with her then husband, there was going to be a divorce. So I never saw anything modeled in a healthy manner. And so we kind of thought we'd escape all that. And sure enough, just starting our marriage.
Can I pause you there? What makes, because so many people say that, like, I'm not going to live like that. And you go, we're going to stop all that. We're not going to have all that. What do you think makes people feel that way?
So I think sometimes the painful memories make us uncomfortable. And so we want to avoid and we don't want to feel that. So we kind of move away from that. But what we've discovered in working with so many couples is when you can confront that pain, we would say you cannot heal from the things you do not feel. And so coming full circle to realize like, hey, that wasn't right, that wasn't okay. It wasn't until we addressed that we could walk through a process of forgiveness and start to heal those wounds.
Yeah. And I think with your question of, Marriage 365, we started a nonprofit because we really wanted to make sure that there was very practical. We're like the practical couple. Because for years, people told us what to do. You need to forgive. You need to apologize. You guys, you just need to communicate. You need to talk about your money. Okay, sounds great. But how do you do that? We were never modeled with 12 different marriages by our parents what healthy conversations even looked like. What does a healthy date, what does that entail? Budgets, what's that? And so we really wanted to create a resource for couples around the world that was affordable, just that we would be creative for you so that someone could just basically hand you a cheat sheet and say, here you go. This is kind of how you love your spouse. You love each other. And that's really kind of behind Marriage 365. We just really want to be that practical, simple resource for couples.
But it's also the fact that we've encountered all these things that we talk about. So, I mean, when we buried ourselves in $200,000 in debt, remember we financed a $80 vacuum because the guy said, you want to finance that?
Sure.
We're like, sounds great. Why not? So we struggled with infertility. I'm an adult living with ADHD. So that adds a whole nother.
Oh, yeah.
I always say I was ADHD way before it was cool. So I get you. Casey, maybe that's why we connected.
We do.
We could talk about so many things. And I want to continue to talk about Marriage 365. In fact, we're going to appoint couples at the end of the podcast. But your story is such a powerful one. I mean, would you guys, share that with our listeners?
Well, I would say that, we met in college. Woohoo. The day I moved out of my parents' house. So that was exciting. Dating was great and easy and fun. And we definitely had this instant connection. We're both extroverts. We both love God and love people and love the beach. And so we just had a lot of things in common. Engagement was exciting. And then...
How long did you guys date before you got engaged?
So we were friends actually for 4 months. And then we dated for 10 months. And then we were engaged for... 8 months? Was it about 8 months?
It was fast.
Well, it was 2 years total time. And so, then we said I do. And literally all of our problems started on our wedding night. And we were embarrassed about that for a long time. We allowed shame to really not tell anybody that we were hurting. And we kind of looked at each other like, what did we get ourselves into?
Yeah, well, and being raised in the church, I mean, nobody really kind of sits you down and says, hey, the wedding night, let's talk about that. Let's go through that. Let's talk about expectations. So when, things happened pretty quickly. And then I wanted around about 2 a.m. I woke up Meygan and she rolled over and she said that she'd give me none of that. And so I slept on the couch.
Because what's the rule about me, babe?
Never wake up Meygan in the middle of the night.
It's true.
I mean,
he learned.
He learned really quickly.
Yeah. Our kids even know.
Like
Don't
never wake a sleeping baby or
there
Meygan.
You go.
Yeah.
That was the start of our marriage, was broken sexpectations, so to speak.
Expectations. I like that.
And that was the start of many, many other expectations that were so unrealistic of what we should be doing as a godly couple. Like, wow, we're not doing morning devotions. We must be really, really bad. So we just started this shame toxic spiral.
And I would say that instead of having healthy communication, like we know that we should be talking about it, we never dealt with our issues or problems. We just either blamed one another and pointed fingers, or we just avoided the issues and didn't talk about them.
Yeah.
So resentment, of course, over years and years built up and got bad, really bad.
So you guys are coming in this thing, all these different marriages that are impacting your relationship. We don't know what we're doing. We have different expectations of each other. And then there's these Christian expectations of what a Christian couple is supposed to be doing, right? So it's your own expectations of each other, of yourselves, and then the Christian body, right? There's no pressure there, right?
We call it the check mark list Christian. So it was like church on Sundays, check. serve in the children's ministries, check. Do morning devotionals, check. Read your Bible, check. Go to worship, check. Tithe, check. All these different things. Yet our hearts were ugly inside.
Yeah.
So on the outside, nobody knew what was going on. We looked really happy. We looked like, wow, these guys are, man, I mean, they got married young and they love each other. But inside we were so lonely.
We
So much
certainly
pain.
we certainly knew how to put on the show. Show up on Sunday. Hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, we're excited. We're having a great honeymoon. So
Yeah, but we were lonely. We were hurting. And then when when our front door would close, I mean, we were not the fighters that were polite to one another.
No.
There was cussing. I mean, it got ugly, really bad.
So yeah, because everybody's got a different script when they're fighting, right? So sometimes we have silent but deadly, and then one loud person or two louds, two silent but deadlies. But you guys were both high octane.
Oh yeah,
We're
both very stubborn.
Both very stubborn.
Oh, yeah. We're both so stubborn. And not to mention that we live in a county with a 72% divorce rate.
Wow.
So,
South Orange County. I mean, Orange County, right?
yeah. So divorce is just normal. Like, you're surrounded by it.
It is totally normalized.
It is. Yeah.
70%.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And this is all, I mean, even in churches. This is, the stat doesn't, this is just our county alone.
So compound the fact that we didn't talk about our issues, dealing with debt, dealing with infertility, living with ADHD,
Being stubborn,
unforgiveness. I mean, it was a total tsunami for us in our marriage. And by year 3, we were facing the probability of divorce. And you know what? Nobody would have blamed us, because that's all we ever knew was that when things got tough in relationships, you just leave.
Right.
I just saw that modeled. My mom's actually on her 6th marriage. So she really believes in marriage, trust me. But, all I have ever seen is just to run to somebody else and do a fresh start.
that you didn't pick the right person. It's just about being the right person. You just got to find that one soulmate. And so that's really, we went into marriage thinking, well, we're perfect for each other. And then when all of the yuckiness came out, we realized, we just picked it wrong. We picked the wrong person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and we say this a lot in married people. Is that people say, well, they just bring out the worst in me. And we say they don't. They don't bring out the worst in you. They reveal the brokenness in you.
Absolutely. I love that. I have a huge smile on my face because that is so true. Yeah. Marriage is supposed to make us better. It's supposed to show us the areas that we really struggle with and need to work on.
Wow. I just want to pause you guys for just a second, because I think there's probably a lot of people listening right now, and they're going, that's our story. That's a version of our story. We brought this in. It was really, really hard. We're thinking, we have an exit strategy called divorce that that we're not, it's not going to be bad if we do that. I mean, rough, but we're not going to be judged forever. What made you guys hang in there?
Can I go, babe, on this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I hated who I had become. I was this friendly, kind, compassionate, caring individual before I got married. And I was this bitter, angry, resentful, very unforgiving woman. And so I basically threw my hands up in the air and I said, you know what? There are certain things I'm not going to allow anymore in our marriage. And I can't wait around for Casey to change. And so I'm going to get myself help. And that's actually what I did. I left the church that we were at. It was pretty unhealthy. And funny enough, I started going to a church that we're sitting at, which has been a very healing place for our marriage. But I started seeing a therapist. I started reaching out to women who'd been married 20, 30, 40 years and saying, pour into me. I need your help. I started reading books on marriage. And I learned that I can't rely on Casey to make me happy because he's going to make mistakes. He's a sinner, and I can't wait, because then what if he never changes? But I am responsible for my own happiness. I am responsible for my own relationship with God and other people. And so I would say around about 9 months later, Casey would say something that normally would, like the beast would come out of me. And I would respond with patience and love and kindness. And you could tell he kind of made this face like,
well, I lost my sparring partner.
yeah, like where'd the old Meygan go?
I lost my sparring partner.
Yeah. And I just didn't allow us to fight like that anymore. I didn't partake in it. And I really saw a lot of change in myself. And what I always tell women It's because oftentimes women are the ones that buy the books. And I mean, truly, the women,
Sure.
and especially in the marriage biz, right? 80% of women are the ones that are purchasing the books and signing their husbands up for the marriage retreats and things like that. Is that, though you can't change your husband, you can have a very positive influence over him by changing yourself.
Wow. So you went first.
I went first.
You went first.
And trust me, that stubbornness, it was really hard. Because if you're stubborn like me and you're listening, you don't want to go first. You want your husband to go first.
Sure.
But I think every person gets to a point where they kind of hate certain things about themselves. I don't know. I think that's also innate in me. That's my natural personality. When there's things that I don't like about myself, I don't just let it stew and I don't just go on autopilot. I go, ooh, I don't like this. I get curious with God. Okay, I need to change this. Why am I behaving this way? Why am I thinking this way about my husband, who 3 years ago was my best friend in the whole world? So, yeah, I've worked on myself.
So you're 3 years in and you're going, okay, somebody's got to go first. I'm going to go first.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people listen, and I probably was one of these type of people that you think, but I'm right. But I'm right. Like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to go first because I'm the one that's right.
Yep.
And it really doesn't matter who's right if we're both losing. And so, what is it, a Dr. Philism where he says someone's got to be the relationship hero?
Yeah.
Like someone's got to go first. And one of the things we say a lot too, it always takes two to keep a negative cycle going, but sometimes one can stop it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
In fact, we speak always to married individuals and not as a couple you need to go fill in the blank, because we learned really early on that couples are at different places, like when it comes to helping their marriages. And if we go into with the prescription of, hey, as a couple you need to go pray together, as a couple you need, which are all great things, do devotions together, that's great things. But if they're different spots, you're setting them up to lose. So we're going, okay, what are individuals? What can we do?
Yeah.
So Meygan, you said, I go first.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of my heart, because you guys brought, like we all do, right? You brought brokenness into this. And so 3 years in, and you say, Casey, I lost my sparring partner.
I did.
Right. And what was going on with you?
It jarred me because it set a different pattern for the way we would deal with how we communicated. We had a serious communication problem, and I thought that meant that's divorce. That's grounds for divorce. We have a serious communication problem. No, actually, we just had a serious communication problem. That's it. So we needed to figure out how to communicate and unlock what is the rhythm and how do we communicate in a safe place. And Meygan, I'm proud of you because you actually led the way for us to be able to do that. I hear it all the time. We just can't communicate. So that means we're not compatible. No, that just means you can't communicate.
You just need to learn.
So I do believe that there is a heart that is willing and open to learn. And we always say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So oftentimes people ask us, well, where do you start with a couple that's lost their way? And we can throw a lot of tools and tips at them. We can. We've got that all day long. But you actually have to start at a place of hope. Because when you've lost hope, it doesn't matter what you give them. You can give them the life raft, but they won't take a hold of it. So Meygan and I have led with our story, even in all its embarrassing moments, in all of its shame-filled scripts, of totally falling flat on our face in marriage, to lead the way for a place of hope for so many couples.
Wow.
Yeah.
You said something when you started, we're not communicating well. That's reason for divorce. I'm curious, Casey, to be in a family where there's divorce so often. Obviously, your mom and your dad had to communicate to you guys, how does, we're divorcing because fill in the blank. I've always wondered that with kids of divorce. What did they hear the reason? Like when mom and dad sit you down, what's the reasons that they say we're going to bust our family up?
Both of us have the same answer.
Well, I've had this conversation many times. Like I said, my mom's on her 6th marriage. So I've actually heard this conversation several times. And it is interesting because, people ask, well, what was that like? Well, that was normal for me.
Sure.
Well, I would ask, what was it like to be raised in an intact home? I don't know anything or any context of what that looks like. So that was a very normalized thing for me. And I'm, again, shocked that that's not the path that we chose. But what I heard was that my family, my safe place, was being blown apart. That's what I felt in that moment.
Well, I was going to say for both of us, there's been affairs, not in our marriage, but with parents. And so I don't know if that was excuses, like when our parents came to us and said, oh, well, I found it in another person. But there have been affairs, several.
So it's like, again, it's soulmate mentality.
That whole thing of like, it's just not the right person. Yeah.
So I think I've found the right person.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys we're 3 years in. Meygan she's doing the work. You lose your sparring partner.
Yep.
How did you guys begin to find each other on the same page? Because how long have you guys been married when you started having kids?
Our daughter was born when we've been married 5 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So this is pre-kids.
Pre-kids.
Yeah.
Which did make it easier. I will say it's hard when you've got kids and you're dealing with this. I mean, it was pre-kids that we went through the worst of the worst.
Sure.
Our story's not over though.
No. In fact,
But that's just the beginning. No. But I will say one of the things we started to do, one of the mentors in my life at that time had shared with me, was to start dating each other again. We were so good at dating each other when we were dating and engaged, and then we just stopped. We worked. I was in school full time. We kind of just left it on the back burner. And so we started dating. We started having fun. We always tell couples, you've got to have fun together, whatever that looks like. And we started really opening up with like heart-to-heart conversations, not how was your day, how was work, what's for dinner, right? We call those transactional communication times. Heart-to-heart is, wow, I know your boss has been kind of mean to you lately. I mean, how is that making you feel? Are you like dreading going to work tomorrow? I mean, you can still talk about work, but it's a deeper level. Hey, let's make some hopes and dreams together. What do we want to do next year? And our conversations changed significantly.
And this is the one thing I love about what you campaign on is couples need to have serious fun. Because I believe that familiarity, that's a hard word to pull out. Familiarity. It's a killer for a lot of relationships because there's many days that you wake up and you stare at your spouse and they're not that spouse that you fell in love with, have the hots for, find attractive. They're just that person that sleeps in your bed with you. And it just becomes the day in, day out of transactional moments that are just passing moments. And couples have lost the sense of adventure and fun. And I know that's when you say that for a lot of couples, they go, fun. Marriage isn't fun.
Yeah.
Because we didn't hear that, right? Especially Christians don't lead out with, oh, it's so much hard work.
It's hard work. It's hard work. It's a little work, and it should be more fun.
Well, think about all the jokes are ball and chain.
Right.
I'm trapped.
Happy wife, happy life.
Doghouse.
What is that telling men?
And it doesn't speak so highly of women. Like, I hate that. I think it's most slamming of them than anybody.
I was just going to say, what is like poor men don't want to get married if they hear that quote, right? Happy wife, happy life.
Well, and it's the generational trend we're watching unfold in front of us. People are getting married later in life because they want their independence, they want their own way, and they're not willing to come together as a team, right? Because, I mean, when life was throwing its best punches, Meygan and I, now, we call it out. Our rally cry is Team Caston. Hey, you know what? We're better together than we are apart, and we can put more than 200% towards a problem.
Yeah.
That's good.
So fast forwarding with part of our story is that when things started to heal, we wanted to get pregnant and have a kid, of course. And we struggled. Here we are, we're young, having sex often, working on it. But what's interesting is with infertility, whether you try to get pregnant for 6 months or 6 years, when you want a baby and you can't, it's difficult. So I have a hard time when people say, oh, well, like a minimum of 2 years is really infertility. I disagree with that. I think when you really want a child, God's not up in heaven going, you got to get over it. You've only been trying for a year and people have been trying, So we had tried, we were almost about 18 months is how long we were trying. And it feels like 30 years when you're trying. And every month, you just kind of go, oh man, here we go again. But what's interesting, and I don't know how we started this, babe, but we started high-fiving each other, and we'd be like, okay, Team Caston, like, we've got this. And infertility should have ripped us apart, but it actually brought us closer together. It was this sad thing that we were like, we're going to figure this out. Like, if we can't get pregnant, we'll adopt, and we'll just figure it out. And it was right as we were healing in our marriage. And so even that would normally just tear a couple apart actually brought us closer together.
And we were a pretty fragile state at that time.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, we're still, there's a lot of healing. I mean, years of healing. This is on our healing years.
The Team Caston slapping, it's, what John Gottman calls a repair attempt. Yeah. Right? We know that things could potentially get really hurtful right now and a lot of pain, or even when we're disagreeing with each other. These things like slapping hands for Team Caston means, we're on the same team. We're not going to let this thing spiral in a bad direction. We're not alone. She's not alone. He's not alone. And it just changes things. And one of the things we do on this podcast and always through married people is, sometimes we made marriage too complicated. We've made it, and things like these moments of we're on the same team, just that, we are on the same team. Just those few words can be so healing. Yeah. I think how it moves people from isolation to being connected. And so I think when people are listening going, wow, could saying to your husband who hates his job, or your wife who hates her job, just goes, I know you hate this. I so appreciate you doing this for our family. Yeah. And I want us to talk about and think through next steps for you, because I don't want this for you long term. Like, just that kind of, I'm going to take the rock off your chest just a little bit.
So the opposite of that is the blame game. Because typically when there's problems in a marriage, whether it's infertility or financial, I just think it's innate in us. We want to point a finger instantly. We don't want to take ownership. It's someone else's fault. And this happens with infertility. So if you're listening and you're like, man, we're struggling with infertility, you don't want to say, oh, there's something wrong with me. It's easier to say, oh, well, it was this, or it's your fault. It's your sperm, right? That's the issue.
Right.
Truly. I mean, you have those conversations. Oh, I'm not eating healthy. We want to put it on something other than just going, it is what it is. But it's a mind shift change to say, let's just work together as a team. It's nobody's fault. It is what it is. But let's just come together and be on the same team. And it's an incredible repair attempt if you can do that in the midst of any issue. Fill in the gap with, financial issues, mother-in-law issues. I mean, just
monster-in-law.
Yeah, we call them monster-in-law issues. But yeah, if you can make those repair attempts there's something about high-fiving because you're physically connecting. You're looking at each other in the eye. You're stopping your day. You're showing, hey, I care and I'm on your side. Exactly what you said.
Love it. And
Team Caston.
There we go.
I love it.
Yes. Can I add one other thing too? Because you talked about simplifying the marriage code. And I believe that God understands that we're very simple people. And we need uncomplicated rules for marriage. But oftentimes it's not that they're untrue, but it's rather that it's untried. Because if we truly just walk through, think about what it takes to make a relationship work. To communicate, to forgive, to apologize. Just apologizing and forgiveness is a cycle that can create so much healing in a marriage. And yet, what do? We stop and go, I'm not apologizing. No way I'm forgiving him, because then that means I'm condoning his actions, or I'm letting him off the hook. So we say these things, and it stops a very simple process that we've seen firsthand. We worked with a couple that had gone through 2 affairs, several abortions and miscarriages, and it was a horrible situation they found themselves in. And they allowed the process of unforgiveness to settle in their marriage for over 10 years.
Wow.
Over the course of 2 days during one of our intensives, all we did was walk them through their story and allow them to share their story to each other. And the next morning, they apologized and forgive and walked through that process. That was it.
It's marriage 2.0 for them now.
And
Wow.
they said that was the turnaround point. And we're just sitting, scratching our heads going, it's really not that complicated.
It isn't.
It's not easy, but it's not complicated. That's what's
it's exactly. There's no rocket science to us, but there has to be a willingness, intentionality. You've got to put some time and effort to it, and I think a lot of people just don't want to do that.
Wow.
So can I continue our story?
Please.
Okay, 2008 hits. We just gave birth to our brand new baby daughter, so that was a great praise report. We live in paycheck to paycheck, spending way over our means. And everything came to a screeching halt. And so as I was kind of talking about the heart issue, oftentimes God uses these painful moments in our lives to adjust and open up our heart to what he'd have to teach us. And it took us forcing us into a place of moving in with my mother-in-law, not great, selling our car and buying a 20-year-old car, not great for the ego. And basically, I went on like 40 interviews and I couldn't get a job.
Oh, wow.
So God brought us to this like crucible where I remember having one of these very heated conversations with God.
Right.
He was okay with the language I chose, but I realized we had to get to the very, very bottom. And God began to purify and cleanse our hearts. I mean, in a real tangible way. We lost our friends. We lost everything. And it was kind of like burning down the entire forest. And out of that came this new life.
Wow.
Yeah, and in that season of life when we had to live with my mom for 2 years, longest 2 years. I'm sorry, babe.
I take it your folks don't listen to your podcasts, right? Yeah, they're not supporting your ministry. Okay, yeah.
Well, actually, funny enough, I would say my mom and my dad, they're not married anymore, but they're very supportive of what we do.
That's good.
But no, we started to pray together. It's like the first time we ever authentically prayed. I mean, when you have nothing, you like cry out to God. And that's what we were doing together, holding hands going, we have nothing. I mean, nothing. And it was very humbling having to move in with my mom and my baby and my husband. Here I am married, and it was hard. But so we started to pray together. We really, just because life was so simple, because we didn't have the distractions of having any money, we got a lot of quality time together. A lot. Yes. I mean, every day.
Oh, yeah. No, we had this one, those plastic pools you get from like Rite Aid or something like that.
Yeah.
Filled it with water, and I'm sitting Indian style in about 3 inches of water with my baby girl and going, this is the life now.
This is the life.
And it was great, though. It was simple. And a lot of times what we see in marriages is that couples use busyness to avoid the issues in their relationship. And we learned in that season, I mean, we look back even now as those were sweet times. It was hard, but it was sweet because there wasn't a lot to distract us. And it forced us to face each other every single day and deal with the things that we had going on in our relationship. It was about that time we also went through a marriage intensive.
It was a 4-day marriage intensive. My eyes. They say they don't even put on the thing, don't wear mascara. They should say that because the ladies in the intensive, I mean, our eyes were so puffy from crying, but
we cried for 4 days straight. It was
pretty
great.
much 4 days straight.
It was great. But it was,
it was great. It really was. It was the hardest thing, but it was the most amazing thing.
And this was in the middle of all of this. And so, quick side question for you guys. How did you, as you're going to 40 job interviews, Meygan, how did you encourage him through that? Because one of the things that there's a great book called How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It. It's a secular book, but it talks about a woman's core vulnerability is fear, and man's it's shame. And so you're probably, hey, oh my gosh, we're living with my mom. So how did you guys encourage each other during that time? Because obviously this rough time brought you together. Like, what are some of the tools if somebody's going through this together? They're both smiling.
We're smiling because I was really mean the first 8 or 9 months.
It was bad.
I was really mean. I shamed him. I blamed him. I pointed fingers. How dare you? You're just not trying hard enough. It was bad. It wasn't good. This is why I'm saying there was years of healing, because I was still learning how to just own my part. And my nonverbal communication was not great. I'd roll eyes. I'd make gestures. He knew I was very unhappy. And, I went back to work in that season part-time because whatever we could take, we took, right? And I was resentful because I've always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And so that was really hard for me. And I don't know if there was a specific moment, but I really do believe that in that intensive, that marriage intensive, I had to really own my story and own my part to say, man, I was just nasty to you in this time when you were lonely and you were hurt, you know? And I remember grabbing Casey, like not in like a forceful way, but like his arms and being insane, because he kept saying, I'm fine, I'll find a job, I'm fine. And I said, I know you're angry with God, and I know you're angry in this situation, and I'd rather have you be this authentic, vulnerable, messy you than try to pretend like everything's okay, because it's not okay. We're not okay. And I could see past that. And so I don't know if you have anything to say, babe, but
No, I tried to minimize. I tried to avoid the pain. I tried to run from it. Even dealing with issues with parents and things like that, just always try to avoid dealing with it head on. And I go back to, you cannot heal from the things you do not feel.
And I want to say this, we teach our couples this, that he thought he was protecting me when he was minimizing and making it sound like he's got it under control. But when he started being vulnerable and messy is when I actually felt like we were connected. And we tell couples, the fake, the fraud, the pretending that everything's okay is disconnection right there. It's going to completely disconnect you. Brene Brown right there for all of you Brene Brown fans.
Yeah, no, I was trying to put on the strong face, but it wasn't what was really, I wasn't letting Meygan in.
But now we know with science and research, and even just in our own marriage and watching so many couples go through this, that the more authentic and real you are and vulnerable with your partner, the more connected you will feel. Wow. And so we just started being raw together. There was no more pretending. It was, this is messy, Casey and Meygan, high five Team Caston, and we've got this. And so that was really, that season was healing. And there was a point when we moved out of my mom's house and it was like, wow, okay, we can do this. Yeah. And then we move out of my mom's house and a month later he gets laid off. It was great. I mean, it was 3 years of him just
complete instability. It was very unstable. And so that forced us again into a place of who's our provider? Because I certainly wasn't. And yet, out of all of that, we paid off all our debt.
$200,000 of debt.
And we were able to get ourselves in a financially secure place in the midst of instability. And God continued to reveal to us very clearly and directly to say, don't forget who takes care of you.
Yeah.
It's not you. And I, for a guy, you know, that we put all our chips in the basket of what we do, how much we make, our ability to provide. And God was teaching me the complete opposite, that actually you don't provide. It's my job to take care of that. Don't worry about it.
And a lot of our money fights ended when he got that concept because because for years I kept saying, I'm not looking to you, babe. Because through that season of being unemployed and living with my mom, I was looking for him to meet my needs. And God showed me in that season that, Meygan, Casey's not your provider. I'm your provider. And so I kept trying to tell him, don't worry about it. God's got it. And I'll never forget. I have to share this because we were doing our budget and we owed, it was like $1,000. I'll never forget the number. It was $1,235, like for the rest of our bills. And it was like, we were like selling things. Like it was like, how are we going to pay for this? Right. It's like right after we moved out of my mom's house and we get this check in the mail. And I think it was for $1,300. And it was from a pastor at our church. And he's like, this guy came up to me and felt like he needed to give a family in need this amount of money, this specific amount of money. And it was like almost to the dollar of what we needed. And I looked and I remember crying and just going, see, that wasn't Casey. There was nothing that I did to make that happen. The Lord put it on this random stranger to give this, and then our pastor was diligent to think of us. I mean, the whole thing is just like God provides. It's not us.
So it's looking around. Where is he?
Exactly.
Where is he in this story?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So our story continues because in order to earn some extra side income, I started to officiate weddings. And it was a fun job just to be a part of someone's wedding and be kind of the guy that facilitates their story and tells their story. And out of that came this conversation that continued to come up. Mainly these couples weren't navigating church. So I was getting couples that were just hey, we're in love. We want to get married. And I was asking these, I would tell their story. I'd tell my story, and I would tell them, I came from all this just divorce and disconnection. And I always ask, so who's helping you? Who's kind of walking you through marriage? And we got everything from, we're just trying to wing it. Nobody. I don't know. We'll just see how things go. And mainly just kind of like people just walking into marriage having no clue what they were doing.
Or I love the one that's the best is, well, nothing's going to change once we get married. That's our favorite we hear.
Yeah. We live together and nothing's going to change once we get married. It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yes.
We hear that a lot.
Right? So out of that, God was really stewing in my heart, this heart for the lost and the heart for people that wouldn't walk into our Christian bookstores and look and pick up a book on marriage from a Christian author. And I think a lot of that stems from a recent book that I picked up that said in the author's bio that the only way to having a great marriage is through a relationship with Jesus Christ. Now think about that. I do understand where the author was coming from, but there are so many other marriages out there that are thriving that aren't walking with Jesus. And I believe that God does not give more of his love to just those who say they believe. That he is deeply, deeply concerned with the Mormon, the Muslim, and the atheist marriage. He's deeply concerned with their marriages because it's a societal impact. I mean, if we just said all Christian marriages survive and everybody else surrenders to horrible divorces, think about what kind of impact that would make in our culture. So with that kind of idea, I think it was just this thing that was in my heart feeling like, who's going to take care of these guys? And out of that just became this like burden. And it was something that was sitting out there kind of in the periphery, while I was working. And then one night I do these like nightly walkie-talkies where I'm talking with God and I'm walkie-talkie. And I had this vision of us impacting marriages. And it was a very specific vision. And I get a call, and then I go back home. I go to bed.
He goes to bed after I do. I go to bed earlier than him.
Yeah. I wake up. Megan calls me on the way to work, and she said, I had this dream. And in this dream, and then she starts to outline to the T exactly what I had envisioned the night before. And that kind of started for us this idea like, what is God doing here?
Yeah, we had the same. I mean, mine was a dream, and yours was the walkie-talkie. By the way, our neighbors think he's crazy because he's talking out loud, walking the streets of our city. Yeah,
I love it.
I know, but and then we just people. There's too many stories to share with you, but there was people with the gift of prophecy that would come up that didn't know us and say, "You guys are going to be the next generation that's going to speak to marriage." What? Who are you? You didn't know this, And so it's just story after story. And in the meantime, we really were praying that God would have us reach only Christian marriages because that's what we knew and what we were comfortable with. And he had a different idea. He wanted us to go outside of the church. I mean, inside the church and outside of the church, both. That there's room for both. And that we really are going to be, and we are seeing that right now, the voice for these younger generations about marriage. And not only teaching, but modeling, because so many of us from broken families just never saw a husband and a wife talk to each other in a healthy way. Amen. And so a lot of people who speak on marriage, it's just the husband or it's just the wife. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's definitely a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Well, I say there's a different dynamic with us. But it is. It's something that people go, oh, it's just interesting to see you guys, how you dealt with that conflict online or on video.
Well, there's been many times on video where we've been caught interrupting each other, and Megan, lets me have it, and I'm like, babe, we're in the middle of something.
Or we did once get in a fight on a webcast live. It was great.
But
it was so good, though.
I bet people, that was their favorite video.
It was. Because hashtag real life, right? It's real life. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And people go, and I think what you guys have described is not a straight line of progress, but one that has gone up and down, just like you're saying, hey, we changed things, we turned things around, and then he lost his job, and then I shamed him. So you're going, okay, so I'm going back to old ways a little bit. We're stopping. We're going to check on our heart. We're going to do this intensive. Now we're going back, and now we're closer together than ever. And so it's like, this thing is not, we get there, we've got it all figured out, but it's a journey with different things.
Yeah.
And you guys have had different parts of your journey with your kids and different things and parenting and figuring all that out and doing a business together. That's not, whew.
Yeah, we work together. We didn't mention this, though our marriage was at a healthier place at this time, but we did get pregnant for the second time. We have a little boy. I had extreme sickness when I was pregnant. So I was very, very ill and on a lot of medication. And then I get postpartum. To add all to this, I get postpartum, and I'm a very happy person. But when our son was 12 months old, I noticed something wasn't right with him. I used to be a school teacher, and all my developmental psychology classes came like right to the front of my brain, and I just said, I got to get him checked. I got to get him checked. Something's not right. And everyone said, oh, he's a boy. They just kind of develop slowly. I thought, no, my mommy gut, ladies, you trust your mommy gut, just said, no, something's not right. So sure enough, he was diagnosed with autism, not until 18 months, but they had diagnosed him developmentally delayed until they could really diagnose him with autism. And that's been a journey. And I think back, if that was our firstborn, I don't know if we would have made it.
No.
The bills, the medical bills, fighting the insurance companies, the therapies, feeding therapy, speech therapy, ABA therapy, you name it. It was like our lives were consumed. And, so, and there's a 90% divorce rate if your child has special needs. 90%. So not only do we now live in a county with a 72% divorce rate, we come from broken families, right? And now we have a 90% chance, and we worked together as a team. It was Team Caston all the way.
Yeah.
And it's how we survived that season. And I'm glad to report that our son now is high functioning. He's mainstreamed in school. He's doing very well. He's still in a lot of therapies, but we're working on it. And there's a lot of hope there. But even in that part of our story, that would have looked differently if we wouldn't have been Team Caston and worked together as a team.
And I will tell you, I probably could have... I was very depressed and, taken back by going through a process of grieving my expectations for my son. And there are so many good-natured people out there that I wanted to punch in the face who'd come up and offer some sort of platitude like, you'll get better, he'll get better, you'll oversee this, we're praying for you. And they would literally, it's like they'd hand like a potato chip and then just kind of walk away like, I don't know what to do with this.
The hardest one we heard was, you just need to pray that God would heal him. You're just not praying hard enough. And it was like, what? Oh, yeah. Total lack of empathy. And we get their point of view. We get what they're trying to do. It's the way that they know how to help or feel, and maybe even the situation makes them feel uncomfortable and they just kind of throw something out there. But, it really made us think, wow, what are Christians saying to the people outside of the church? We had the empathy because we got their mindset. But if their neighbor that was not a believer was going through the same thing where their son just got diagnosed with autism and they just kind of said, we're just going to pray for you and we're just going to do this. It's not that those are bad, but what does that non-believer, what are they thinking? What is the process? What are they going through? And that really, to just bring it all back, is with Marriage 365. We have a heart for all marriages that everybody can learn communication tools. Everybody can learn how to be a team. Like, we have such practical things that we can do to help couples. And it's incredible to see, couples forgive and heal and communicate and laugh and have fun again. It can happen. It just has to be two willing people.
That's right. But it starts like your story started with one person going first.
Yeah.
One person going first. So for you guys, each episode, we want to leave our listeners with one thing. And we've talked a lot about some great things, but I think the thing I love about you guys is you have obviously been through some tough things, but you guys are always, not always, when I see you at least, you bring a joy and a perspective and a reality and a story that's so inspiring to so many people. You know, people say, if we could do it, anybody could do it. You're kind of those people.
Yeah.
You're kind of like,
really are those people.
you are the poster child for those people. So with all that being said, what would be one thing, if there's a couple that's hurting or not hurting, what's one thing that's great for any couple, regardless of where they are in their relationship?
So we get a chance to teach this at our retreats, and we've taught literally thousands of couples a very simple, very, very simple practice. It's called the 60-second blessing. And the 60-second blessing is where you spend literally 60 seconds affirming with words the qualities, the features, body parts, the accomplishments that your spouse has made. And you just shower them with these words. It's best done in person, face to face, touching each other's arms. But you can do it over the phone. You can do it via text, via written notes. And it truly is amazing to watch a crowd of people turn to each other and have one spouse shower that spouse for 60 seconds with how much they love that person, and then have the other spouse return that. There's always tears.
We get often from the couples that have been married more than 20 years. Every single time we do a retreat or conference, they say, I knew my wife thought those things about me, but it sure felt good to hear them. And I think oftentimes in marriage, we kind of go on this autopilot where we're doing life, we are next to each other, we're paying the bills, we're raising the kids, and maybe we're even having some fun. But to take time every day, I mean, we recommend doing this every day. So that's 2 minutes a day. I mean, who doesn't have 2 minutes a day?
Right.
And if you can't do it in person because you travel for work or maybe a military family, it's okay. Do it email, text, whatnot, Skype. It radically changes because it's forcing you to have not only those heart-to-heart conversations, but to hear the things your spouse loves about you. Not only is that, I mean, I would say confidence boosting, but it's also just, wow, you really took the time out to pay attention to me. Oh, you do care about me. And we often sometimes can just feel really lonely in our marriage.
Sure.
And it's nothing we're doing intentionally. It's very unintentional. So this is a very intentional, simple practice that we found to be incredible. And we learned this at the intensive that we did.
I love that. And even somebody walking in going, today, what's going on? I'm going to do this for my spouse, not asking for it in return. Is maybe to go in and just see what happens. You know, just for the ones that go in. They may faint. They may go, what did you do with my spouse? But it's so powerful. You guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so if people want to know more about you and find out some more things, where do they go?
Marriage365.org. We're all over social media, so Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, and the list goes on. But that's a main site. And then under resources, they can learn a little bit more about some of the resources we provide, such as our webcasts. So we produce a monthly show that people can watch either live or kind of get back into the archives. Titles like...
how to make your marriage a priority. We do have one on monster-in-laws, one of our most popular ones. We've got his desire, her desire. We have a lot of ones that are on sex and intimacy because a lot of times people are embarrassed to go to their therapist or talk to a friend like, hey, we're struggling in that department. Right. So we feel like, hey, you can watch in the privacy in your own home and learn about sex and intimacy and how to have a great sex life.
So we've created a tool that, couples can watch on any device in the confidentiality of their own home. You
don't have to get a babysitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello,
perfect.
Yeah.
And we're a lot of fun. Come on, right, babe?
Yeah, and then with each webcast comes like a PDF of tons of couples connecting questions. So we give them questions that a therapist would ask based off the topic. So, yeah.
I love that. So these guys are going to hang out with you guys like we got to do today. So thank you for doing this. I know you guys are very, very busy people. So
thank you for having us and inviting us.
Yeah, thanks, Ted.
All right, love you guys. Talk to you soon. So that was my interview with Meygan and Casey Caston. I love those guys. And you can check out more about Meygan and Casey and what they're doing at marriage365.org. And I want to thank you for joining us for the Married People Podcast. We hope today's episode helped you realize that marriage is a little easier than you think. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. Your review helps us to make the podcast better and get conversations in front of more people who really need to hear it. And finally, for more resources to make your marriage better, check out my book, Your Best Us, on Amazon, and visit our website, marriedpeople.org. Don't forget to join us for next week's episode. And until next time, I'm Ted Lowe, and thank you for listening.